People are a little crazy in their own way. At least that's my experience. To me, what really sets reliable people apart is their honesty. Everyone has issues, but those people we count on when life gets tough are usually the ones who are honest about their own stuff. They're the anchors who help us through the storms of life, especially when we wonder where God went. The truth is, we connect with God through people. The church is like rope. A rope is a collection of fibers tightly woven together. The Bible says as much. 2 are better than 1, but a cord of 3 is not easily broken. Few people who belong to the church can say they had a personal, face-to-face encounter with God. The rest of us trust what we see and hear from those who saw and heard. The ones who saw Jesus feed the 5,000, who saw him die but alive on the third day, are like the fibers at the beginning of the rope. The rest of us are somewhere in the middle. Yet many of us have trust issues. Our issues with God are rooted in the fact that we don't get to experience God like we do the flesh and blood people we encounter. My story began with my mom and dad dragging the 4 of us kids to church every Sunday. Over time, the people around me showed strength that helped me overcome my own fears and begin to put my trust in God as a direct result of their example. They are the anchors in my story, who were there for me when I needed extra support. Now, I'm still a work in progress, but my responsibility is to be trustworthy for others, just like the ones who modeled it for me. That's what it means to witness. When everyday people connect with the ones who are connected to Jesus through the church grows. Take this grappling hook. It's a type of anchor. Jesus is like the anchor we can't see, but we're willing to trust because of the people who showed us that life is better when Jesus is the anchor. In order to build a stronger connection with God, I had to learn to be honest with the people who kept me anchored. They were trustworthy when I told them the truth. We take risks when we practice truthfulness, but we will not go anywhere without becoming vulnerable enough to be honest with ourselves and the people we're learning to trust. Reverend Eleanor Dalton's life was a witness to countless people by remaining truthful and trustworthy in her own life with Jesus. Diane shared her story at the Celebration of Life a few weeks ago.
Eleanor taught the Good News Sunday School class for years, and this is where our bond began to grow. The class mostly studied various books of the Bible, and she loved for us to read from the many different translations. The class consisted of an eclectic group of individuals like Ron Pritchard, Joanne Raber, the Cotts, Cassie Knapp, Susan Dillard, Joan Averett, Betsy Kincaid, Laura Bradley and her daughter Leanne, the Savinskys, Terry and Dennis Morgan, and other guests always wound up with the Good News folks. Arthur, Carolyn, James, Audie, forgive me if I'm leaving anyone out. Furthermore, the Kairos folks from the Correctional Center always joined us when in town. All were welcomed. Eleanor was engrossed in life and lifelong learning. She especially loved words and showed great interest in other points of view. She enhanced our Bible study with commentaries from different people, especially Charles Spurgeon and William Barclay. Once we studied the book of Mark and met at Cassie's house, so one of Eleanor's contacts, an expert on Mark, could speak with us. Our class studied Revelation and a book entitled Surprised by Hope by N.T. Wright. There seemed to be more questions than answers at times. However, Eleanor loved the challenge and had faith that as we searched and struggled, answers would come. Eleanor loved music. She was a dedicated member of the Thalia United Methodist Choir. One particular hymn comes to mind when I think of Eleanor. great is thy faithfulness, mainly because I saw her as a dedicated woman of God, full of mercy and hope. On our last visit, I found that hymn on YouTube and played it for her. Her face brightened and she smiled for a few moments. Although fleeting, it is a smile I will remember. Eleanor created a picture of what's possible when you love like Jesus. She wrote to the incarcerated, and they wrote back. She brought a few unhoused folks into her home to live in until they could find housing. And while there, under her roof, she taught them life skills. She introduced our Sunday school class to interesting missions, both locally and internationally, and encouraged our participation. With her knowledge of Methodism and the Bible, she intrigued her students to dig deeper. She also visited the sick. I remember the time she stood at the foot of my husband's hospital bed in Norfolk General at the beginning of his cancer journey and skillfully proceeded to gather visitors, including one atheist, into a circle to pray for healing. On September 13, 2014, my husband Joe and I returned home after visiting a friend one afternoon. As I opened the door, my eyes scanned across the kitchen floor where I saw my mother's lifeless body, dead. Chaos followed. It was Pastor Eleanor who came and sat on the kitchen floor with me for hours beside my mother's body. We cried, we prayed. Eleanor listened and brought me comfort. She used a phrase that still stays with me and comforts me about the spot in which my mother lay. She said, "This is where your mother met Jesus," transforming a spot of loss into one of gain with a simple phrase. Eleanor knew and used her spiritual gifts to love God and to love others. As my mother used to say, "You preach your funeral every day." Eleanor must have known this also. She left us a spiritual legacy to emulate. Be devoted to family, both your earthly family and your spiritual family. Invest in people like sowing seeds. Be bold about your God-given passion found in Romans 12:11. Be an example of faith. Pray without ceasing.
Now, I can tell you Diane is a work in progress like the rest of us, but that's why I love doing church with the people of Thalia. They're helping me live and love more like Jesus. There are trustworthy people in this church family who are practicing being truthful with each other as we help more people connect to God through our family system. Jesus modeled it with his students. They learned from him how to anchor their lives to God in relationship with other people. The various layers of support enabled them to practice being truthful and trustworthy in a way that lives on today in churches like Thalia. I'd be willing to guess we could all use another trustworthy person in our lives. Life with God is not a fearless existence. However, life without a trustworthy anchor is far worse. I'll take the one that's rigged to Jesus, the anchor of my soul. If you're tired of figuring out on your own, we're here to help. I'm Pastor Joe, and on behalf of the church family at Thalia UMC, I'd like to tell you, we want to help you when life gets messy. Take care and God bless.